That's the attachment. When there's affection, there's natural attachment. But wisdom infused affection. Sounds like a nice topic, huh? A bit of a contradiction, but here's how this topic is going to be covered. There's perils of attachment. There's a problem of just detachment. And then there's the synthesis, healthy detachment and healthy attachment. We gotta get there. That's our time together. So material civilization of attachments. Some of you are in the process, some of you have completed the process of education. And commonly after a job comes marriage and then children home and a whole series of things that happens starting with getting a nice education in how many years of life is spent with that one. And then the flow of other things. And there's attachment to those things in each stage. It's not like the previous one is given up, but just add more things. It's material civilization. Some of you know this one, the teaching of Buddha, the root cause of suffering is? Yes? That's his teaching. So we could change it out and say the root cause of suffering is attachment. I'll spend a little bit of the time because there is such a thing that Buddha doesn't acknowledge, and that is there's such a thing as spiritual desire. There's such a thing as spiritual attachment. So when you say the root cause of suffering is desire, then naturally the way to get free from suffering is get free from desire. But then there is such a thing as spiritual desire. So let's say it differently. You ready? This is the Vedic perspective. I hope you're getting used to my using this word Veda by now. Vedic perspective is the root cause of suffering is ignorance. And from ignorance comes ignorant desire. From ignorant desire comes ignorant action. From ignorant action comes karma, comes suffering. So the way the eradication of suffering is not eradication of desire. Eradication is eradication of ignorance. And that includes, like the question from the morning session, or the breakout session actually. What's the importance of knowing yourself? Because then you can have desires that are in harmony with who you are, as opposed to the other kind. Desire that's apart from who you are, or in ignorance. You with me? Let's keep going. This is cartoon. Oh, master, is a cover for mom to use email. Mom is no attachment. So here we are. We're at Bhagavad Gita again. And those of you that don't have one, I hope one day you get one. Second chapter and fourth chapter on desire that results in negative emotion. So there's that attachment word again, because we're focusing on unhealthy attachment and healthy attachment. Unhealthy detachment, healthy detachment. So from attachment, which is basically the body, then comes fear of threat to the body. Let's look at this. The root issue is attachment based upon the body. And then there's an attachment where that body, or that which is connected to the body, appears to be threatened. We all have bodies, so there's sometimes fear. And then when that attachment is deprived, then there's frustration or anger. Or when this goes down, there's depression. So externally directed, internally directed. He gets angry at someone for depriving that which is an object of attachment for you. What's on the screen here is just breaking down some messages above the view. Focused on what's on the left side, the root, is attachment based upon the body. So the healthy attachment is that which is not based upon the body. But the attachment is not based upon the body, it's based upon who you are. And another spirit and soul. So then you have wholesome relationships because you see the other person not as a covering, but the substance of the person. Remember this from the first day, part one? The form is the tip of the iceberg up above. The substance is the real I, it's the big part of the iceberg below the surface of the water. And then relationships, they have a spiritual dimension to them. There's a relationship between the real I and another person and the real other person. During lunch break, I had lunch upstairs, and I was viewing, I was just asked, like, where do I go from here? When I complete my time here in Singapore, my plan is to go to India, spend a few days in one city, and then go to Vrindavan. What's Vrindavan? Vrindavan is a place where Krishna performed his childhood pastimes. Very, very lovely place. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's a holy place, Vrindavan. And so spiritual relationships have everything to do with knowing the other person. So supposing, we'll do it this way. Supposing, put the Vrindavan visit on pause for a minute. Supposing I don't know who I am. And supposing I don't know who another person is, but I want to have a meaningful relationship. What's going to happen? It's going to be a dysfunctional relationship. Because I may think I know who they are, what's good for them, what they want, and I'm trying. We've all had the experience. You go out of your way to try to do something for another person that is meant to bring, some satisfaction, an act of kindness, and it's read just the opposite. Yes. Why would you do that? Well, they may not say it, but there's kind of a wall. Where did the wall come from? Because we're misunderstood, because we didn't understand the other person, they don't understand us either. Dysfunctional relationships. So to have meaningful relationships, it requires understanding who the other person is. That the stuff that's up above, that's also there. They have their nature, they have their body and their mind and their intelligence going on, doing things. Oh, I know what I was going to say. In anticipation during my lunch break, in anticipation of going to Vrindavan during my lunch break, I listened to someone who loves Vrindavan very much, a lady who is about the same age as me, but her nature's, she loves Vrindavan. She lives in Perth, just sharing. And the Prime Minister of India spoke about what a wonderful lady she is. Because in her home in Perth, they have some land. And in her home in Perth, she's made a replica of Vrindavan in her home. And she invites people from all over the city to come and learn about Vrindavan and the glory of Vrindavan and to go to visit Vrindavan. She's not a travel agent. She's just someone that loves Vrindavan. So I was listening to her speaking about Vrindavan. It was, she speaks from her heart. She was speaking in front of a camera in a live stream now then recorded class given in Perth about Vrindavan. But you know, that's the real her. That's the real I within her. And I've heard from her husband, because I know her husband more than I know her, that their natures are so different. But they've been married for something like 40 years, 2 grown-up children, and they're settled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if the tip of the iceberg stuff is so different, taken from them. But you know, that their heart, their substance of who they are is so strong. The affinity is so strong. Nice. Really nice to have that kind of affinity for another person on a spiritual platform, although materially differences are significant. That's nice. Okay. There's too much focus on form, that's what's above the surface of the water in the iceberg example. It leads to conflict and pain. So we want to have some respect for the substance. Now, supposing there's just too much detachment. This is a little video. It was put together by, in Holland, there's a little thing at the end, they're promoting commercial transportation using buses in Holland. That's where it comes from. But here we go.
Het heeft zo zijn voordelen. Ontdek alle voordelen van de rust en plan op de lijn.be.
Can you turn the light down? I'm going to play this again.
Goed verplaatsen heeft zo zijn voordelen. Ontdek alle voordelen van de rust en plan op de lijn.be.
I thought you'd like it. Too much attachment. Just attachment. That's not good. And our nature, as mentioned several times now, by nature, we love and want to be loved. By nature, we're social beings. So too much detachment is not so good. Then someone may be like an isolationist. Well, it's too complicated. Social interactions are too complicated. Let me just be alone. Here's the saying: the ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. So we're social beings. We're meant for having wholesome, meaningful relationships, plural. And there's this image we saw before. Some of you remember this one. We seek holistic relationships. So there's the soul within, or the child within, who we really are. And then there can be conflicts about the form. I don't like your language, I don't like your culture. Some people in Singapore, they speak too fast. I can't understand what they're saying. I have to ask them again a few times. Speak slowly, please. I hope it doesn't bother you when I do that, because I don't understand what you're saying. So here's something that could be an interactive exercise, but the notion is a you-centered and a spiritual-centered kind of life. Let me, this, the person was sharing, somebody during, just before the breakout session or meet the monk session, somebody wanted to know what my spiritual experience was. And I'm going to share one. A few years ago, 52 years ago, I was a college kid. And the first lecture that I heard my spiritual master speak was at the university. And he spoke with an accent that I couldn't understand. So I had to listen to the recording several times.
Mhm.
But it made an impact. It's still with me. So I'll share it with you. He made a motion like this in the room. So supposing there's a pond in the middle of the floor, and we gave everybody a pebble. And we asked, one person at a time, please drop your pebble into the pond and let's see what happens. So you drop your pebble into the pond, and we know what's going to happen. A little flash, and then concentric circles go out from that. And you drop the pebble in. And it's very nice. Okay, then somebody over here, you drop the pebble in, and what's going to happen? Same thing, a little splash, concentric circles go out, and everything is nice until the concentric circles would hit then other concentric circles, and there's a clash. And then let's say, okay, everyone else, on the count of 3, throw your pebble into the water, and what's at night? It's chaos. The surface of the water has so many splashes and so many concentric circles splashing with one another, called material life. So now let's do another one. Everyone else gets another pebble, and we will all place our pebble in the same place, right at the center. And then the concentric circles go out, but they don't clash with one another. In fact, they amplify one another. Now the question is, what's that center? Supposing you don't know what the center is. So there's a group of people over here that say this is the center. There's a group of people over there that say that's the center. And some other people, you get groupism. So that's not durable, because it's still going to have clashes, and even the group is going to change over time, because they initially agree what the center is, but it's not really what the center is. So the center shifts. Even that group started to break into little pieces. So what's the center? So this is where you is at the center, and concentric circles go out. That's the I and mind. There's the Sanskrit phrase. Those are some of you from India. Aham, mameti. Aham, and I and mind. There's material life. I am this body. If I think I'm a material conscious person, I'm this body, and what's mine is what comes from this body. Like my work and the fruits of my work, my children, my home, my car, my stuff. There's I, there's mine. And then there's another person that has their I and their mind, and there's a problem between I and mine. When there's, as the previous slide, more emphasis on form and not sufficient emphasis on substance. That's called material life. So now let's go to healthy detachment. We'll circle back where spiritual is at the center. Healthy detachment. Cut off the tie of all other affection does not mean complete negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. This is not possible. Living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. The symptom of life, such as symptoms of life, such as desire, anger, hankering, feelings of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. Let's go back to the root cause of suffering from Buddha is desire. And I said, The Vedas say it's not desire, it's ignorance, and from ignorance comes ignorant desire. If I don't know who I am, and I don't know who the other person is, I'm still going to have desire, but ignorant ones. And my desires are not met, so I'm going to get frustrated and angry. And then they have relationships where we're having a dispute with one another over all that stuff. So the solution being recommended here is, let's say the example, the very first lecture that I heard my spiritual master teach, find the center. And your individuality is preserved. Everything that you are doesn't have to change. It's just you find the center. Are we in an after lunch kind of lag? I think so. What to do? I can do a couple of cartwheels in the front. I'm going to tell a story. Is that enough? Story. To illustrate this, here's a story. Picture. I'm going to walk around a little bit to keep you awake. I was traveling. We have our ISKCON center has a farm in Lytton, Pennsylvania. We don't know the geography in America. Some of you do. So it's the train ride from New York City to the farm. New York City's over here, farm's over here. So I got on a train going to the farm, and we stopped at another city on the way. What they did in this other city is half the train goes south, and then the other half of the train continues going east. So I'm sitting with my computer and lots of stuff, I like to do stuff in trains. And then a lady came along, and she was a talkative type, She has anybody sitting next to you, and she's like, I got the vibrant, I want to talk. And so she looked at me and said, are you part of an ashram? It means like a living facility for people who live spiritual life. And I said, yes. And she said, oh, I was part of an ashram. Okay, you want to tell me about her ashram? So I said, where was the ashram? She said, West Virginia. I said, wow. Because we have also a farm in West Virginia, further west. So what was the name of the place? She gave the name of the place. She said, no, I said, I don't know that place. And she just wanted to talk, so she went on. So a group of us, about 50 of us, joined this ashram in West Virginia, and it was really nice. But it wasn't over, so what happened then? He said, well, it lasted for about 3.5 years. And then some people in the ashram, they wanted to go that way. They thought the center should be that instead of this. And so the whole thing broke apart. So then what happened? Because he wanted to talk. So I went to New York and I joined a yoga society ashram in New York, and I lived there for a bunch of time. And it became really good yoga. And she wanted to talk some more. So then what happened? So now I live in Philadelphia, I'm going to visit my friend out, in the western part of the state. So it was my turn to say something. So I said, I joined an ashram and it's still there. You know why it's still there? Because the center wasn't an arbitrary center. It wasn't a group of people got together and say, hey, let's make this the center of our community. And then it changed after 3.5 years. It's still there. And that's where I'm going now. Oh, where's the place? Maybe I'll go visit it. Anyway, I'm just sharing with you because some people look like they're half asleep. And it illustrates the point that there is a true center. Now, I was speaking in the prior sessions about knowing yourself, but there's also the self is connected to something bigger than us. there's a bigger reality than just me. And what is that? And let me connect with that. And then let each of us connect with that, and our individuality is preserved and purified. For those of you that were with us during the Meet a Monk session, it's like, how does this work? How does sound, mantra meditation, help you get free from stuff, free from conflicts and inner turmoil, etc. You got to have the right center. You got to have the right sound. You have to have a good teacher and good teaching and connect. And when the good teacher, good teachings, good sound vibration, slowly, the darkness is dispelled, the lower emotions, the lower misconceptions, etc. Darkness is dispelled, and the light comes on. To do steadily for some time, the light gets brighter and brighter. Just stay with it, with some consistency. So your only objective has to be achieved. And make sure you have the right center. There's a text from Srila Prabhupada. Healthy detachment. The tie affection in terms of material relations is the relation of illusion. Because the relations of the body or the mind are due to the influence of the material energy. Relations of the soul established in relation with the Supreme Soul are factual relations. Paragraph. The skin relation is the cause of material bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of freedom. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by via medium of the relationship with the super soul. So what's the super soul? That's a guess. This is a Bhagavad Gita lesson. I hope it's okay. Still with me. There's an animating force within the body, that's the soul. And according to the Vedas, there's another one within the same heart of every living entity, and that's the super soul. What's the super soul? Super soul is a form of the Supreme manifested in our heart. And the super soul is a witness of our desires. Supposing you're a thief. I don't think anybody here is a thief. Supposing somebody's a thief. And super soul gives them intelligence. Don't steal now. Someone's coming. Okay, good pass. Go ahead. So the intuition of the thief comes from the super soul. Or do you have the situation here in Singapore where, probably you don't, where I live, there's a thing. When the winter comes, the birds fly south. You know about that, right? At least you know about it. You don't see it happen, but you know that. How do they know to fly south? Because super soul is inside their heart. You have time to go south and get lots of them, big group of birds all together fly south. And then when it gets warm again in north, they fly north. Where does that intelligence come from? Same place that the thief gets his intelligence from. Same intelligence the person who built this structure comes from. The same source of everyone's intelligence. Then how aligned are you to that source? That's yoga. That's what yoga means. Linking with the Supreme. That's the English translation of yoga. Link with the Supreme. So there's this level and there's stages. So this is the wholesome relationship. This is where meditation and meaningful relationships intersect. That's the topic of the first class. We're almost done. Detached from sense of possessiveness, sense of being the benefactor, being in control of the person, being the enjoyer. but not the person. We care for the soul. So control over what? Over the form, not the substance. Goes back to this, like the drama triangle. To be a person who is a good coach, we're not trying to fix people's problems in a temporary way. We care about them because they're spirit souls. We want to help them grow and all those nice things that the coach do. Look at this, here's Bhagavad Gita. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. That's where your yoga classes are going as they mature. Here's some seaweed floating on the surface of the water. And as the waves move, or leaves, clusters of leaves move according to the movements of the waves. So that's the material side. Here's the spiritual side, or revised model, where the Supreme is at the center, and there's concentric circles that go out. And then our sphere of activity can be whatever it is that matches our nature, but the Supreme is at the center. There's multiple, so many, multiple persons whose natures are very different than ours, but the center is the same in this compatibility and meaningful relationships. How to do it? Just meditation and wisdom literature, as I've been mentioning, Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, we have this the conclusion, the last slide. Those are almost done. Healthy detachment and healthy attachments. It's 5 after 3. Wisdom infused affection. We saw this before. Wisdom infused affection, resting upon a spiritual conception of self. Meditation will help you get there. I mean, your yoga practice will help you do your meditation nicely too. Put them all together, the body, the mind, the intelligence, and the spark of life within. In nice alignment, guided properly, and you'll be happier and healthier and wholesome person as you move along in the course of your lives. I'm sitting down. You're all, almost all of you are still awake. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Yes, you mentioned that there's a soul.
Look at this, here comes a microphone. Although you don't need one.
Yeah. Okay, I saw from the.
Hold it further from your mouth than that, because
Great. I saw from
and in fact, one thing, speak slowly.
I saw from the PowerPoint that you mentioned the soul.
I did.
The soul, and then the super soul. Okay, so now question
Did it shock you?
yeah, in a way, and you also mentioned that you take out the detachment, but you must not ignore
Slowly.
you must not ignore the soul, must take care of the soul. Question. So we cannot see the soul.
Oh. You're not supposed to see the soul.
So how do you take it?
Huh?
How do you take it?
How do you what?
How do you take it?
How do you see it?
How do you take
How do you
it?
detect that it exists?
Yeah, how do you make sure?
How do you take care?
How do you take care of the soul?
You cannot see.
See slowly, I'll get you. You don't have to answer this 5 times. Pardon me. Okay, how do you take care of the soul? One of the best ways is those things that are of the same quality as the soul, you give that to the soul. For example, sound. There's material sound and there's spiritual sound. In the material sound, we discussed this in first class, there's modes of nature. Let's say music. That's sound. So, there's classical music that's very elevating. There's, the other kind. And then the kind you have to roll up your window when the cars are screaming it out of their car. So there's sounds impact consciousness, but you also have the experience of musical sound using musical instruments. But the sound was the sound of transcendence. The quality of that sound is the same as the quality of the soul. That's how you nourish the soul, is by spiritual sound. It's not only a mantra. That's an example. There's another example. Notice I've been making reference a number of times to Bhagavad Gita. When in Bhagavad Gita it means, Gita means song. English translation of Gita means song. Song of Bhagavan. Krishna speaking, that's Bhagavad Gita. That's spiritual sound. And it's recorded. Not as an audio book, but it's recorded in a written book. And one who hears that sound, that's nourishing the soul, because it's of the same quality as the soul. Here's another example. Everybody eats. I don't know anybody that doesn't. Everybody eats. So there's eating in the mode of goodness, in Bhagavad Gita, foods that are in the mode of passion, foods in the mode of ignorance, and foods that are offered with love and devotion to the Supreme, that becomes spiritual food. And when you take spiritual food, nourishing the soul. Why? Because it's of the same quality. Remember that example I gave you of tuning a piano? Did you hear that one? No? Oh, that was in your breakup. I'll tell you an story. Some years ago, I was a young boy, and I had 3 sisters. And 2 of my sisters, they're all older than me, they like piano. So my parents bought them pianos. And every 2 years or so, a piano tuner would come to the home. And I was curious, how does he tune a piano? And when he came to the home, he brought with him, it looked like a guitar case. That's the size of the thing. But when he opened it up, it wasn't a guitar inside. It was his instruments for tuning piano. And there were 2 things. There were tuning forks. You know what that is? The handle and 2 forks to go like that. And then, so there's C, there's a D flat and D minor and all those things. And then there's a rubber mallet. A wire that at the other end was a round rubber ball. And so he would hit the C tuning fork and hold, you would touch the chord, the C chord, you hold it close enough that the vibration would vibrate that string. It didn't vibrate the one to the left or the right, it just vibrated down because that was the C chord. And then he could see, based upon what was happening with the chord, sometimes it would be in tune, but if it was out of tune, then the vibration would show, so then you would tighten or loosen it. But that chord, the C chord, vibrated because it was the C tuning fork. With me? Similarly, sound, or that which is of a spiritual nature, awakens the soul, like the tuning fork of a C, held near, not touching, but near the piano chord, would vibrate. So sound is the most fundamental way of nourishing the soul, with those things that are connected to that spiritual sound, including food that's been offered in sacrifice to the Supreme, that nourishes the soul. How do you feed the soul? So that which is in relation to the Supreme, we bring the soul in relation to that. And there's many things you can do. Those are just some of them. For example, this one down. So you become learned, you're smart man. You learn that which is spiritual and bring your soul in connection with that which is spiritual and including the soul. You don't stop doing other stuff. Because you have your nature. You have your body, you have your mind, you have your other intelligence, you do those sort of things. But make sure you're nourishing the soul side by side. And align less. Let me finish this thing. Then you align those other things with the well-being of the soul, with those spiritual things. Now, go ahead. You want to say something?
And after doing that, I will be able to realize that I am not my body.
Yeah, gradually, you have a body, just like you have a shirt. It's a covering of the body. You have a shirt, but you're not the shirt. So there's a body that covers the soul. We have a body, but it's not me. The body, I had a different body before this one. And what exactly it was, I don't know. But I know that I had another body before this one. Do you know that you had another body before this one?
No.
Okay, yes you do. I'll prove it to you. You ready?
Yes.
You ready? You're logical man. Did you, once upon a time, were you a baby? Were you in a baby body?
You're saying that
I'm asking you a
yes,
question.
yes,
Of course.
I was a teenager.
Now, okay. So now, where's that baby body?
Transform.
According to medical science, all the cells in the body every 7 years are replaced with new cells. So how old are you now?
55.
55. So divide 7 into 55. So let's just say you're 49. You've had 7 different bodies before this one. And you're working on number 8. In this very life, every single cell is gone. That baby body, gone. But you're still here. And then after this body at 55, and let's say you live to be 70. That's whatever, let's take a number. So that's 10 different bodies. And then what's going to happen after that? Instead of the change being slowly over 7 years, it happens suddenly. And then where's the soul going to go? You don't know, right?
I want to find an answer.
Okay, the answer is, according to where the mind is absorbed, this is Bhagavad Gita. Yam yam bhapi smaran bhava. Chacha ante, ante means at the end. At the end of this body, where the mind is absorbed, that's where the soul goes. Whatever your mind is absorbed in, even today, whatever your mind is absorbed in, that's where you go. Right. Huh?
Go where?
It depends on where your mind is. Supposing somebody's a drunkard and they die, where do they go? Supposing somebody's, whatever it is, whatever the mind is absorbed in. Here's one for you. John Lennon, you heard his name. Prabhupada said, in his previous life, he was a very accomplished musician, so that in the beginning of this life, his musical skills were superb. And he became a John Lennon, because in his previous life, he was a musician. And now he's a musician, or became a musician. So whatever the mind is absorbed in, whatever that is, and we're deciding whether the mind is absorbed in, it's not being decided for us. You're making choices. And according to those choices, that's where you're going to go. By laws of nature, it's not like, I don't want to go there. You're making choices now, that's going to determine where you're going to go.
can I downgrade my question?
Can you downgrade the question?
Yes, just now I,
Our MC at the back wants to have other people have a chance to say something.
We'll come back, we'll have time and then, start.
Your enthusiasm is appreciated.
Questions, very interesting stuff, got me thinking. Thank you so much for sharing today. Very enlightening and a lot better today from listening. I have a curiosity from some of the other Buddhist teachings. There's a lot of talk about presence.
About presence.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious, how does that, what does the
Bhagavad Gita say about that?
Yeah,
I couldn't pronounce it either.
sorry.
There's another phrase along with presence is mindfulness. Another phrase connected with those two is be in the moment. Presence, be in the moment, mindfulness. I could give you a long answer that would take about 6 hours. But I'll give you a short answer. Because I visit China, this is the medium. Because I visit China, I know from interacting with devotees in China that many people know about Buddhism, but they really don't know what it is. They say that they're Buddhist, or they say they know something about Buddhism, but they really don't know. So I spent so far 6 hours going over that topic of what does Buddha say about mindfulness, and what do the Vedas say about mindfulness, which is your question. And in Buddhism, a classical, not the only one, but a classical form of Buddhism says all there is the moment. Because the past is gone, the future hasn't happened. And there's a term in Sanskrit that says momentariness, which is, be present, be in the moment. Be mindful of the moment, because that's all there is. The Sanskrit phrase, kshanika vijnanavad, consciousness is momentary only. And there isn't anything else. And then the purpose of, I'm going beyond your question, but the purpose of being in the moment, because that's all there is when you get really good at being in the moment, what happens after that? You go beyond the moment. And what's beyond the moment? Nirvana. What's nirvana? Literally, nirvana means nothingness. Na, near means not. Nirvana means forest of material existence. You're beyond material, cessation of material existence. What's beyond material existence? Nirvana, nothing. So all there is nothing. So it's not just be mindful or be in the moment or be present, but it's when you get really good at it, you go beyond the moment into nirvana, enlightenment. But what's that? Nothing. Because material existence has ceased and there's no acknowledgement of that which is eternal, like the soul. So now you're back to your question. What does the Bhagavad Gita say about that? Well, there is something that is eternal. Fundamental, eternal. And that's the soul. Not only the soul, but the super soul. Within the heart of this body, there's the animating force of the body that's eternal, beyond the moment. Now, our consciousness presently is, from your perspective, we're lamenting over the past. It didn't go right, you made some mistake, blah, blah. And we're hankering for making it a better future. And we're anything but be present. So it's encouraged in the Bhagavad Gita, be present with that which is eternal. So now I'm going to step back 3 steps and say, there's eternal time and there's past, present, and future time. I'll say it again. The time as we know it is past, present, future. In the question, is there such a thing as time that's eternal? Answer, yes. What's in that eternal realm? Well, the soul in its nature is in that eternal realm. And being in the moment is to help you as a doorway to get to become calm enough, because you're not hankering over what you don't have and lamenting over what you've lost, because you're being in the present. Then I can understand who I am as the eternal being, not just a covering. The body, the mind, or the intelligence, they're all coverings. Now, one more step. And there, the soul itself has thinking, feeling, willing. It has intelligence. It has a sense of identity, ego, but not false ego, but who I really am. And there's an eternal sense of all of that. And in that eternal realm, there's unlimited numbers of living entities of that same nature. That's where this train is going. And in response to your question, the being present is to help you get to that which is eternal, who we really are. We go the other direction. Supposing you're not present, you're absent. You're in the past or in the future that hasn't happened yet. You're not present. So that then the door is closed. You're being tossed around by past, present, and future time. You're not even present, so it's just past and future. So be in the moment, be mindful of that which you really are. Your eternal entity, part of the supreme eternal. And there's a full eternal life awaiting that we've forgotten. I think that we're too busy trying to be successful to enjoy in this realm of the temporary. And that's, go back to this, what Buddha said, desire is the root of suffering. The Vedas say the root of suffering is ignorance of who you really are. And becoming free from suffering is to know who you really are. We covered that during our breakout session. What's the symptom of a self-realized person? So one of the answers I gave is, there's verses in Bhagavad Gita that say, one of the first symptoms is prasanatma. Atma means the soul. Prasana means happiness, joy. It's a symptom of a self-realized person. They're joyful within, just like this text we showed. So back to your question. Presence within the context of Bhagavad Gita is to know who you are as the eternal part of the Supreme. You have your place in eternal relationship with that Supreme and relationship with others who are also part of that eternal realm. But it's gradual. I mean, realizing that is gradual because we're accustomed to darkness. We're accustomed to past and future and not being present. Being present is the mode of goodness quality. So cultivate goodness and it'll help you get to transcendence. I hope this is meaningful to our people here. There you go. And how are we doing with time? We're past time, right?
5 minutes we have.
So, what does nirvana look like me?
Literally, translate the word, it means cessation of material existence. Nir means not, vana means forest, and the forest of material existence, or more colloquially speaking, cessation of material existence.
It's
Nirvana
like,
means cessation of material existence. So when someone's material existence ceases, what's left? That's the next question. And if you're Buddhist, it's nothing. No, it's just going into void, a condition of voidism. There's a Sanskrit term. You know the Sanskrit term? Shunyavadi. Shunya means zippo. Shunya, zero. Shunyavada, the doctrine of nothingness.
so like, what I'm confused about is that we say that the ultimate aim of the soul is to attain moksha.
But that's you knowing the Vedas. But Buddhists have put the Vedas in the garbage can.
Okay.
They don't accept the authority of the Vedas. So then that has a whole new set of definitions of what's what.
So like, according to Bhagavad Gita, what does nirvana mean? What is moksha?
I've given the answer to you already. And if you want to get some more detail, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verses 20 through 23, where Krishna is describing samadhi. Samadhi, the mind is fixed,
Right.
mindful, in the presence. He describes it. And you'll find that more detail on this topic of nirvana right there. The Vedas teach go beyond nirvana. What's beyond nirvana? It's somethingness instead of nothingness. What's that somethingness? You know, eternal life. What do you do with eternal life? That's there in the Bhagavad Gita, and more detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, I hope this is meaningful to our people in the audience. I think we should wrap it up.
Yes, Maharaj, we have 2 minutes. Do you want to take this final question?
Who's fine?
Or do you have one?
Yeah.
One final.
Okay, one last, you got the last question? Congratulations.
Thank you. So just now you mentioned about the supreme and system.
Slowly.
Just now in the slide, you mentioned the supreme as the
Hold the
center.
microphone a bit away because it's got this echo in it.
The supreme
The supreme
as the center.
at the center. You saw it like that,
Yeah. So from a family perspective,
family perspective.
what are some examples where a family has that as a
Great question. Great question. I like your question. I like your questions. Thorough. So the supreme is at the center. And let's say, you know, there's husband, there's wife, there's children, there's home, there's their activities, the children are going to school, the husband's doing this, and the wife is doing that. And in all of those diversities, there's a center. This center is, this is meant for the pleasure of Krishna. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that says that, Yat Karoshi, Yadasnasi, Yat Shahosi. Whatever you do, Krishna is at the center. Whatever charity you may give, Krishna is at the center. Whatever sacrifice you may perform, whatever austerity you may undergo, so that the husband's going off to work. Let it be the sacrifice that's meant for the pleasure of Krishna. Now there are persons who are benefiting from that. That's the family members. And the father, the sense of I'm providing, but the husband is not providing. Krishna is providing. Supposing Krishna takes away the ability to go to work. Then what? So we're instruments getting the benefit from the source of everything. And then we're offering that which has come from the source of everything back to the source of everything. And there are others who are part of that circle. In the center, there's circles around the center. And that's where the family fits in. And then, you know, in addition to family, then there's friends. And there's community. And there's, you keep the circles going out. But there's a center for all of those things. You know, the concept, you know, visually, you can make a picture of it. Verbally, I can be described it. It can be described. But then when you strive to live that way, you're engaged in some activity that makes your consciousness more clear and more spiritually focused, then you can see it, you can feel it. You know, it matures. That's natural. How we doing? Bell rang. Time's up.
Like I've been saying throughout, gratitude